Okay. Decisions, decisions, decisions. What do we do? And how do we manage to get finagled into them? Are we pressured into a decision? Is it a choice? Actually, it might well be because we decide to choose and we choose to decide. And that's a decision in itself. So let's say hello to everybody, first of all. So, Angela, let's start with you for a change.
Wow, I'm not used to going first. I'm Angela,
See, I made a decision.
I could make a decision not to give you my answer.
This is true.
I'm Angela. I'm based in Hamilton in Scotland, and I am a kinesiologist and a coach working with lots of lovely people to get over that meh feeling. Well, I'll end it there.
Tanys, you're in the bottom corner of us.
I'm Tanys Coughlan. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and I am an energy healer, a channel, Celtic shamanic high priestess, crystal master. I do stuff, and I use that stuff to help people to feel better, follow their wellness and spiritual path.
Everybody loves a bit of stuff. Okay, Willie, on you go.
There's a quote in there somewhere. Better not. Hi, I'm Willie Nicol. I'm the cop turned coach, former police officer, now a personal development coach. And like Tanys, I help people with their stuff, the stuff that's going on in their lives they're not happy with and they want rid of or want more of or whatever. So helping people with their stuff, online, in person, worldwide, in Scotland, wherever.
Okay, Mary, what stuff are you going to have?
Well, my stuff, I am operating from Cork as I do, but having clients all over the place, is I work with people who, generally speaking, are busy, they're working, and they're just not on top of things. And I help them get on top of things. So I help them actually have joy, be in the flow, have a good mindset, and just thrive.
That's good stuff.
That's
okay,
good
Tony.
Stuff.
I'm Tony Gordon. I'm from East Kilbride in Scotland. I'm a mindset coach and a hypnotherapist and a lot of stuff around. I do a lot of stuff for that as well. I help you a bit like Mary, who are in positions and jobs or in their own business and get a bit lost. They don't know what their purpose is anymore. I just help them provide some clarity to that with some motivation and some confidence and get their drive back.
Okay, it looks like we've decided to talk about stuff. So.
And I didn't start it this time.
Oh, no.
Not my fault.
Well, you know, somebody's got to start it sometime. So I'm Leslie Marsh, and I'm a holistic culture consultant, amongst other things, with a lot of stuff going on in that department. And there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. And the decisions, we actually make decisions a lot. Around the world at the moment, everybody's making a lot of decisions right now. There's a lot of energy going on with people deciding what to do or choosing what to do. Are they one and the same? Let's see. Angela, are they one and the same?
It depends.
Huh? And on what does it depend?
I guess it just depends on your point of view. If we're talking between decisions, choices, deliberations,
well,
whatever's going on.
I tend to think that a decision is a choice and a choice is a decision.
Okay. Is that the end of the conversation then?
That's the end of the conversation, yeah. Go on.
That was quick.
Yeah, well, you know, I keep getting told I need to be quicker.
Well, I watched a TED talk where the speaker was talking about decisions. So you can make a decision, and that means nothing unless you do something about it. Mm-hmm. So the analogy she gave was, as we all do, we make a decision at New Year to be healthier, drink less, etc., etc. So that's fine. But if we don't follow through in that decision, was it a decision? Yes, it was a decision. You decided to do it. If you don't do anything about it, it's pointless. So chew on that, as they say.
So if you don't do anything about it, it's just a thought rather than a decision.
Well, it's still a decision. You've just not actioned it.
Yeah. Well, and in that case, it's the daily choices that you make to make that decision happen.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but as soon as I hear the word diet, I get hungry for things I'm not supposed to eat.
Programming.
But
But
but it's also that we're always on a diet. We're on a food diet or a drink diet or whatever. Diet doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be restricted. Diet is just what you eat.
Yeah, but it's the connotations that go with it, particularly at that time of the year. And particularly just before the summer when people start talking about bikini bodies. I don't know why men don't get sort of budgie smuggler body going on, but we always get
It's
the
a
bikini
mankini
thing.
body for them. It's the
we
mankini.
decide not
Have you
to.
seen the mankini?
Yes, unfortunately.
Whoever decided to design that needs their heads looking at. They really do.
I also read an article where one country, it might be Germany, where Speedos are still very de rigueur, right? Most people, I wear shorts now. In my youth, I wore Speedos, right, because everyone else did. The Olympic swimmer, Mark, somebody I can't remember, but that is very
Mark
passionate. But
Spitz.
Spitz.
so on Spitz, Mark Spitz. But apparently, this country, I'm saying Germany, I might be decrying the Germans, is all the males go in Speedos, or as Leslie politely puts it, budgie smugglers.
But I think it's either Germany or France. I'm not sure that I've heard something similar. And board shorts, as in the baggy shorts that a lot of men wear, aren't actually allowed
Oh,
because they're not seen as hygienic.
Ah,
Whereas the budgie smugglers are more hygienic.
They might
So
be
that's
more
a decision
hygienic, but
I would make
I'm sorry.
to perhaps not go swimming in those pools.
Well,
I think
there might be less
you
than
have a choice as to whether or not you would go to those pools. You have a choice to choose what appeals or does not appeal. And from that, you then make a decision to go. Your choice is about what actually is acceptable to you. I think I sometimes think of choice as being about me, but decisions can be out there in the ether someplace. They can be more external to me. The decisions, my decisions tend to be about things that are outside of me, but my choices are very internal.
Oh, interesting.
mhm.
We could be getting back into the territory of fate and destiny there.
No.
No, I wouldn't
Now
have
that was
thought so.
decisive.
No.
It's a decisive no.
I like
I
that.
wouldn't decide no.
I like that thought process of choices are more internal, but I think because I was then thinking, right, well, so when do I make choices? And you're thinking of things like, if we're going out for dinner, you make a choice of what you're going to have on the menu and things like that. Whereas the decision might be to go out for food with other people and actually be around, I suppose. But then I think decisions can be both, and I wonder if choices are personal.
Mhm. Decisions feels bigger to me, like a larger kind of choice that has to happen. So more of a categorical kind of thing, as opposed to a detailed choice. I don't know. That's kind of how I see the two. So like you make the decision to follow a certain, like we were talking about diets, you make a decision to follow a certain style of diet. You're going to follow the keto diet. And in doing that, each day you're going to choose the protein. I'm going to choose the chicken over the bread. You know what I mean? Like you're choosing. So for me, that's kind of the difference. Like the decision is kind of a larger thing, and choices are like those everyday.
I think
Action
the choices are a part of the decision. Like you want to buy a new car, so what do you decide to buy? What make, model? Then you've got the colour, and you want leather upholstery, and you want aircon, right? So they're kind of decisions within decisions, or decisions follow other decisions. Right, I want an Audi. Right, what model do you want? I want an A3. I want an automatic. I want leather seats. I want it to be black. So one kind of follows the other, and there becomes a kind of chain reaction or a process. So what do you call that? You make a decision to buy a car, and then you choose all these other components.
Yeah, I agree. That's the way I look at things like that. Same as Angela was sort of saying as well as the car. You decide you want to go for the meal, but then you choose where you go. The choice follows on. It's like an ensuing. It follows
who you're going to
from
go
your
with.
decision. Yeah, and who you're going to go with. You make those choices. But yeah, just what Willie's saying about the car's exactly how I think about it. My decision would be, right, I need to get a new car for whatever reason it is. Now I need to choose whatever car I want, what colour, whatever you want with it. They're the choices that follows making that decision.
Where does the emotion come in?
wherever you want it to.
I don't know, but I actually just while you were talking pulled up a statement from Psychology Today, where they said the art of decision making. When making a decision, we form opinions and choose actions via mental processes, which are influenced by bias, reasons, emotions, and memories. The simple act of deciding supports the notion that we have free will. We weigh the benefits and costs of our choice, and then we cope with the consequences. So they have actually used decision and choice as interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
But like when we look at some of the stuff that's written about decision making and the psychology of decision making, I mean, there's been because they do a lot of it, particularly in retail, about the choice of colors, the choice of layout, the choice of store stuff. There's an awful lot of research done on the psychology of how we make the decisions. And that sometimes I think it's more interesting to look at, we have patterns in how we make our decisions. And we can sometimes have very good patterns and very helpful patterns. And sometimes they can be a little damning. They mightn't always be effective. And it's like, that they, when you choose to buy or make a decision to buy a red car, then all you see are red cars. So the whole interaction between the decision and our observation and our attention, it's all enmeshed. It's not clean cut that it's A or B. It's much more complex.
Nothing can be taken out of its own little place, its space in its continuum. It can't be taken out of there and looked at as a single entity. It has to be something from when you say bias, it's got to do with experiential stuff. It's got to be how we were brought up, how we decide to vote can a lot of the time be generational, particularly in some places. And even if the party is no longer serving the needs of the community, it can still be an ingrained generational idea that we are the family who votes for these people. And so that's kind of your choice is slightly to say, okay, I'm going to choose to go with the members of the family and the idea of that, or I'm going to choose to say, stuff that, I'm going with somebody else. But even then, there's a kind of push me, pull you thing that goes on. Because even though it's supposed to be a secret, somehow people get to know.
Only if you tell them.
Well, somebody tells them.
I think when you mention emotions, Leslie, I remember a mutual friend who was, shall we say, in sales, would say something like, when you buy something, you buy it based on emotion and then justify it with logic. That is what my wife does, right? Oh, that's a lovely pair of shoes. I've always wanted a pair of pink high heels. Right? So the emotion was, these look nice, I'm having them. And then she'll justify it by saying, that'll go nicely with that outfit and it just fits the bill. And then 2 weeks later, I hate these shoes. However, that's a kind of proof, is it? We look at it and go, that's a shiny thing, I want that. And then we justify wanting it and getting it with some logic, spurious or otherwise. And I think we've all done it.
I can say that basically, as far as it comes with shoes, I used to be able to walk on like what I used to call Manhattan skylines, and I used to be able to drive in them as well. But the thing was that there was a situation where it came to the point that I thought in myself that I could still do that, but my body is like, nah, and my feet are like, get out of it, not a chance. You don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. And this part of your body's telling you and deciding to tell you, no, make a different choice. Because I'm going to make you blisters. I'm going to make you sore. I'm going to twist your ankle, that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of cases that we sometimes have this idea that we don't age very much mentally. We don't think about it that way. We tend to think about, oh, well, when I was 16, I could wear shoes like that. That'd be great. I can do that. And then then if you're clever, you try them on in the shop and it feels like you put your toes in a vice. And you're like, no, I don't think so. I'll go back to my Tanys.
That's the decision made for you by
Oh,
an
yeah.
external force. Your feet are telling you, don't
Gravity.
miss a bloody super. Right? So I have to recognise I will never play rugby for Scotland because of my advanced years and my creaking body. So there's an external factor, if you like, denying me that choice because I can't make it anymore. I never was going to play rugby for Scotland, but if you get the idea that there's an external factor denying you that opportunity to make that choice, and in this case, in my case, maybe yours too, Leslie, advancing decrepitude's got a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I think a lot's got to do with window shopping in your head. Some of us can do that, Angela.
I can't. But I guess it's the memories and then the emotions that come with it. So I remember when I wore these lovely pink skyscraper heels, this is how I felt. This is what I was doing. This was the company I was keeping. These were the experiences that I was having. And I want to have that experience again. So maybe those emotions are coming to play when you're then browsing them in the shop before reality kicks in and you think, well, actually, if I choose to buy these shoes, then blisters follow and this, that, and the next thing. And I could get Botox injections in the soles of my feet that would make it less painful, which is a thing. And yeah. But
Wear my
perhaps
high.
that's...
You mean I can rewear my high heels again? Brilliant.
But then perhaps that's not what you want. And actually a pair of trainers or sneakers or whatever you want to call them, or slippers or flip-flops is exactly
Pods.
what you want. Or what?
Pods. Pod shoes made out of neoprene. Yeah, pods. They're great.
I haven't tried those.
Well, yeah, Angela's too young.
I think I'm quite happy about that fact.
Well, you've seen my pods. I wear them all the time. But yeah, it's the thing about making decisions is, and like Mary said, sometimes they're manipulated. When it comes to shopping and when you go into supermarkets, they oftentimes put the things that you would expect to see at the front, at the back, and things that you don't expect to see right at the tills for those little impulse buys that you get because you're standing in a queue and you're looking at something, you're going, ooh, I quite fancy one of them. I'll have some of that. Or your kiddie, if you're unlucky enough to have one of them with you, will want the whole tray full of stuff that's there. All the stuff that's going to make them go round the houses for 100 million miles an hour for at least the next 5 hours.
Well, there's the whole thing about that retail psychology. So kiddies, for example, the sweeties are placed at kiddies' eye level.
Oh, yeah.
And the sweet cereals are all placed at that level as well.
Right. And then you have the bakery with a nice smell of baking. You're drawn to the freshly baked bread or the coffee or whatever. You're quite right. And I know this from my time in security because I interacted with supermarkets and they have a plan. Now, I remember my local supermarket where I said, in fact, avocados, there you go. I was looking for avocados. My wife likes avocados, me not so much. So I said to the young man, where are the avocados? Oh, they're here. I said, no, they're not. That's where they normally are. All right, okay. I've been on holiday for a week. Let's go and look for the avocados. And then he told me there's somebody at head office who deliberately moves everything about. So when you go look for your avocados, they're not there. But you might pass something, as Leslie said, oh, I need one of those. And there's a whole thing about supermarkets and retail, which is designed to make you buy more than you set out to do.
Absolutely.
I put my blinkers on when I go in.
I do think it's interesting when you have that knowledge about the psychology, about how they manipulate the positioning in shops. You can actually become very disciplined at ignoring 90% of it. I won't say I ignore it all, but I would have entire aisles that I just don't go down because I know I don't need anything down there, so I just don't go down them. And I was very taken aback when I discovered that one of our local supermarkets, even the location of the colored tiles on the floor was done with intent. And you're going, okay, don't look at the floor, have your list and just buy your list. It is so much safer.
Always go with a list.
Yes.
Always,
I would
but
like
it
to know
is
then-
interesting how when we have knowledge, when we have that extra piece of knowledge, it impacts our decisions then, or the ease with which we, succumb to the impulse buy and then justify it. But sure, I haven't had it and I deserve the treat. So I do think there's a lovely interplay, because when we look at the deeper theory of how we make decisions, that knowledge gathering piece is important. And it doesn't matter what decision we're doing, that having that discipline of gathering the knowledge is so important when it comes to making decisions. And what I find I have to keep watching for is only looking for things that have confirmed the decision I've made, but I'm not so disciplined at looking for the opposing view. There are other people who will always look for the opposing view and maybe avoid making a decision because they're always balancing. My bad habit is that I will look for more evidence to support the kind of half decision I've already made. Oh yeah, there's more evidence to support it, so of course I'm right.
So Willie's wife's pink shoes, I like them. Therefore, I'm going to come up with a whole list of reasons why it's the right choice.
I'll find 20 outfits if I have to justify the great value, and
I'll wear them with my jeans.
And the cost per wear is going to be so low.
We could go down the rabbit hole of supermarkets. My wife asked me to buy some Guinness, not for me, for her friend's boyfriend's birthday. He's a big Guinness fan. So I go and look for, there's a 4-pack, special offer, £5. Okay, right, that's a bit miserable to take for a birthday. Oh, there's an 8-pack, special offer, £10. And I thought, who are they trying to kid here? Right? So it's exactly the same price. Right? I thought, well, 8's a more appropriate, get a small birthday present. But they must think we're absolutely stupid.
It's when they do it the other way around, and it's cheaper to buy them individually than it is to buy the multi-packs.
Oh,
so you've got to go in with your brain switched on when you're browsing the aisles in the shops. I wonder if internet shopping and the decisions that are made to do that instead have reduced the amount of random purchases because you're not browsing and passing by, or has it increased it because they're flashing different adverts? So I don't do internet shopping, so I don't know from a supermarket perspective.
Neither do I, but I would imagine the ads and the algorithms of the ads that you might accidentally click on is more dangerous.
And the other thing that you end up with is if they don't happen, or the person who's collecting the shopping for you, if they don't happen to be able to find one of the items or several of the items even, then they make their own decision of choosing a substitute for you.
Only if you select that substitutes are allowed. There's an option to switch that off.
I would never select that. I'd rather go with 8.
But I think as the standard, it's switched on. So you've got to make the choice or the decision to uncheck it.
Yeah.
I've got one then with taking the supermarkets then. We've been in Aldi's and Lidl lately, and I've never been to them before. And I go into that shops and I'm totally confused because you can walk down an aisle and there's beans, then there's a fishing rod, then there's some sort of bacon thing, then there was something, this is true,
and a canoe.
this was the other day, and Lidl's. And I'm watching people go by and I'm going, what is that they're all looking at? And it was all this fish. It was like tuna steaks and there was salmon, everything, and then fishing rods. Did you go and catch your own fish to cook for dinner?
No, that's the middle aisle situation. That's a psychological thing. Here's the fish, go fishing. Buy this rod that you don't really need, because basically it might be a good thing because line caught fish is very ecological.
But
the fact that the rod couldn't catch anything is another thing.
Is it an impulse buy again? Is it trying to get you to entice you to buy other things? But they do it so randomly that it's not all food in one area and it's not all one type of food. Like Willie said, when you get to one supermarket, any of the larger ones, you've got all the groceries in the one bit. You've got like tins of soups or whatever it is here. You can meat, whatever here. They don't. They put indiscriminately in each aisle. And so you never seem to know where you're looking for, what you go. Is that a psychological thing for them to say, well, someone's going to pass down here, they're never in the same place. You can go down one week and it's one place, the next week's another. You never know what you're going to pick up in between that.
So I wonder if you've just gone to a very random Lidl or Aldi. The ones I've been to, it's always that middle aisle. It's always the randomness. and I can usually walk around those supermarkets and find what I want. They don't tend to move their stuff around that much. But what you're not used to in those ones is the brand names are different. So you're looking for something in a particular color of packaging or a particular shape, and it's different because those supermarkets do their own brands.
Well, I think it's the opposite, Angela. There's a Aldi Coke, right? Which is, if you weren't paying attention, you would pick up as real Coke or Diet Coke or a particular piece of cheese or whatever it happens to be, or even a bottle of beer. Now, I don't drink beer, as you know, but that's particularly coincidental to that type of beer. And there have been instances of kind of copyright fights because
there's been quite a few of them.
Look too much like ours. What was it? The caterpillar cake.
The caterpillar cake, yeah. I think that was a Marks and Spencer's versus either Lidl or Aldi.
So they're going to court over a bit of cake. Yeah. To be fair, when you look at them, there was Charlie the Caterpillar and Cuthbert the Caterpillar, and you couldn't tell the difference. I thought that's a bit cheeky.
Oh, she's got it.
What?
She's just got why that advert was there. It's an interesting one because I think maybe because I don't visualize, I don't know, but I'm quite picky with certain brands, especially depending on which chemicals are in certain brands. So my choice is I won't have foods with these particular chemicals in them. So therefore I'm very, very picky when it comes to looking for the brand names that I know don't have those chemicals in them. So I wonder if maybe there's something there, and it could just be that it's a subtle shift, and I'm thinking, no, the name's wrong, or there's something wrong with the packaging that's just not right as far as I'm concerned, because I'm used to that brand and this style of packaging. So I think maybe it's a subtle shift, but maybe I'm tuned in such a way that I spot them. I don't know.
Is that a decision you make not to consume things with particular chemicals, and then you've made that decision, and then you choose the items that don't have these chemicals in it? So it's like the car analogy. You make a decision to buy a car, then the following are extra decisions or extra choices. I think
this is it. What we've got here is that we're choosing not randomly, we're choosing by habit. We're choosing things that we know that we are comfortable with. And that happens psychologically in other areas in life as well. And that's why it works so well when it's condensed into what we eat, how it's presented to us, and where we go to get it. It's all done as in be comfortable here. Even the music stuff that goes on in some of them, particularly in the early days of supermarkets where you were kind of lulled around the aisles. So there's a lot of manipulation that happens with decisions. And some people find it really difficult to make a decision if they don't ask someone else what their opinion is. And they can be swayed by another opinion. And it's one of those things that, as therapists, we can often find that we're right up against the wall with. Because somebody has said to a potential client of ours, what do you want to go and do that for? It's only loonies that go there. So they're attaching this idea or can you not think for yourself? Which obviously they don't think they can because they're telling them what to think.
Or it's not that you can't think for yourself, it's that my opinion matters. You don't need to seek outside counsel because I'm going to tell you what you need to be doing. And it's that point that asking people who have got a vested interest in your outcome to give you advice and suggestions on what they think you should be doing isn't always helpful. And a book I've just finished reading, my favourite quote from it was, don't ask the cheap seats for their opinions. Don't take advice from the cheap seats. If they're not on the pitch with you, if they're not in it with you, their opinions don't matter. And be really, really careful and choosy whose opinions do matter to you, because everyone's got their own biases and everyone's got their own vested interests in your life if they're your friend or your family or your spouse or whatever else. So bear that in mind when you're asking for opinions. And if you are going to ask for opinions, my suggestion is always to maybe preface that by saying, I am going to ask for your opinion, but please don't be offended if I don't follow your advice.
It goes even
Mm.
further than that. Sometimes, though, in some cases, take familial things. If someone suddenly discovers that they have a sister, brother, or whatever because one of their parents had an affair and there was issue from that affair, then because it comes up years and years afterwards and they didn't know about it, and I know that this happened, one of the first things that came out of their head was, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know where I fit in the family anymore because these two are younger than me. And I was always the middle one. And suddenly I'm not the middle one anymore. So trying to say to someone, you're still you. All of your stuff is all subjective to you. It's all just for you. All the decisions that you've made in your life, they're all yours. They didn't come along and steal any of them, and nothing that they've done or even their existence has changed any of that. But psychologically and emotionally, there was some kind of schism that went on that was, and that they're still trying to sit with it. Even although, there's been counselling, there's been a little bit of stuff, that shock about what someone else did that changed their lives completely, a decision that was made out with their knowledge. And it wasn't made with their knowledge because I think were they even born at the time? Can't remember.
But I think that goes on further, Leslie. It's not just when things like that happen and suddenly you've got a realisation about changing your family. Someone who's been made redundant, someone whose job has now been automated and changed into something else. Anything can happen. As Willie was mentioning, the decrepitude, I think was the word you used. If you've got to a point where you've maybe been doing something for so long and suddenly you're injured and you no longer can do that thing, who we are as a person doesn't change, but because suddenly I can't go out on my bike or I can't swim or I can't go and spend time in the gym, you then have that personality crisis of, well, who am I? What am I? And some of them is just labels. It's just what you did as a hobby or what you did as a day-to-day job. And it doesn't mean you're any less of a person, but it's how society sees us or how we assume society sees us as a different thing. So going from the middle child to the youngest child or vice versa, there's connotations around that the middle child, these are all the problems that middle children have, and this is all the problems that the youngest in the family have. And all that stuff is just stuff. As you say, we haven't changed fundamentally who we are, but something's not the same. And I don't know how to deal with that something not being the same. And that's where the likes of us come into play.
Yeah, because that causes a lot of anxiety and a lot of contemplation of the navel to a certain extent, where the focus just goes inward and there's a rabbit hole there, and people can go down that rabbit hole and not realize that there are ways of dealing with it. People can get somewhere by actually understanding who they thought they were was what somebody else told them they were.
Well, having been made redundant with all the connotations of that, the very word redundant means you're no longer of any use. You are obsolete. And I had to think about, well, my job doesn't define me and my career doesn't define me. And I was given some very good advice, which was that this will only affect you adversely. And it did, because I was a very angry bear when I was made redundant. This will only affect you if you allow it. If you choose to let it affect you, or you decide it's going to affect you. I thought, I still have that power. I still have that capability to choose or decide, will I let this get me down, which it did do initially. I thought, well, is this profitable? Is it helping me? No. So I decided or chose or whatever not to let it affect me the way it had been, and growling at my wife and generally being a bit of a bear with a sore what's-it, right? And I made that decision, no, I'm going to move forward from that. So when things happen to us, we have the ability, free will, whatever you call it, although it's sometimes very difficult, not to let it get us down, affect us adversely, impact negatively, and so on. And it took me a while to learn this, because it's a learning skill. So I realised that jumping up and down, kicking the wall, swearing a lot, wasn't very productive.
I think it's an interesting one. So being made redundant, I've had it done to me twice. The first time I really wanted it, and I was really excited. I was happy. I was looking forward to it. I'd kind of been waiting for it for about 4 years. And I was at that point of, I'm not leaving unless they give me the money to go away. And I was very determined that that's what was happening. And then I had a conversation with someone, so again, about allowing other people's opinions to colour your viewpoint. I had a conversation with someone who said, oh, that's the worst thing that can possibly happen. My wee friend down the road, they got made redundant and they're still unemployed and they're really struggling and it's such a hard time out there. And I was coming home ready to put my head in the oven. It was just that way of, I wanted this. This is what I really wanted. I was craving this. And I joked and said, I want 2 months off. And knowing my luck, I'll get a job straight away. And lo and behold, I got a job straight away. But it was that concept of, no, this is what's going to happen. So I allowed somebody else's fears and concerns and stressors to impact me. And it took me about a day or so to think, hang on a minute, where did that come from? That wasn't me. That's not how I want to respond to this situation. But again, it's that choice. I could have chosen to wallow in that other person's opinion, or decided, actually, do you know what? That's not me. I'm gonna dust it off and I'm just going to move forwards because actually I get a new car.
But I think that's really interesting.
About psychologically is unconscious bias, is that because of these decisions are things we hear about the word redundant, it brings connotations up in your own mind before it. So that unconscious bias is already what we think of redundancy before it even happened. As about you, Angela, when mine came up, at first I probably was like Willie, I was thinking about how bad it was because a whole department were going 148 years, we're just told one day you're all going. We're making it digital, what you do. So again, it was becoming automated, what we did. We couldn't figure out how they were going to do that. But go away for the weekend and think about it and coming back and saying, well, wait a minute, actually, this is a great opportunity. For me, it allowed me to do this. I wouldn't have been able to do this right away if I hadn't been made redundant. So it was taking away the bias that everybody else seemed to have about the connotation of what redundancy meant and actually looking at a different perspective and realised, this is an opportunity. So I actually missed the stage at Willie had about the bearers or he'd, but I probably did that afterwards once I realised maybe this is not the same what I thought it was going to be.
I think that word just didn't trigger anything for me. I didn't even go down the route of thinking redundant meant I wasn't needed anymore. First time they restructured and it was a reverse takeover type situation. The second time they shut the building down. So the jobs had to go somewhere else and mine went to London, which was 3 times the cost. But that's a cost-saving exercise, which amused me. And so it's those ones. I think it depends on if you allow the meanings of words to affect you. Sorry, I may have jumped in the topic again.
There's another little piece that I think is really important to add into it. I think that if we have a pattern of decision making where our pattern is to look for the expert, perceive others to be the experts, we are more likely to be impacted than if we trust our own inner judgment. So like you, Angela, were saying, somebody told you it was terrible and you immediately, their other knowledge became the overriding set of thoughts. Yeah, you copped on within a day or two and you were fine. But I think when we have big things happening externally, if our decision making goes through a process where we rely on other people for their perceived expertise, I think that our sense of choice becomes very changed and skewed. So I think when we're working as therapists, we have to be very mindful when either that we're being perceived as the expert, which is in itself its own risk and scary, yes. But that getting them to understand this is just a pattern. Now let's look at some other patterns you could look at, and let's see, can we see any other ways of approaching it? That we actually give them more choice with which to make the decision, because we create in a space where they have more information.
I think too, like with my clients, I think, I encourage them to make decisions out of love as opposed to out of fear, because I think some of our bias is related to fear and programming that we've had. So when we can encourage them to make a decision out of what they really want, rather than fearing other people's judgment about their decision, or fearing what could happen, then we tend to get decisions that are more true to what we are wanting to create and do in our lives. So I often will have that, and it's more of a filter that you run it through, I guess, once you sort of, when you're trying to make that decision, is, okay, am I making this decision because I'm scared that somebody else is going to judge if I don't make this decision, or if I do, or am I making the decision because it is what I really want, or it is what I really feel is right for me as an individual? And so
There's that idea. There's that idea again of fear being a big pusher in the situation, of wondering, you know, the idea that we make a decision and there's no going back, there's no other way. I think we get ourselves boxed in a lot on that, and it's a perspective thing. If we don't have perspective, then we are bound to make decisions that just repeat choices that we've made before. It could be that we have feelings of unworthiness, or which is why a lot of people perhaps stay in bad relationships, or keep getting the same presents and different gift wrapping, if you can call that a present. But well, it's a present in some ways, I suppose, when you're present being there. But it's one of those things that a lot of it's got to do with the perceived expert. A lot of it has got to do with allowing ourselves to please ourselves and not always look to please someone else, to make, you know, I have to be there to make someone proud of me. Why?
That can be
do we
really
need to
deeply engraved.
Yeah,
and
I
really,
mean,
really
absolutely
from a
my
very young age
goodness.
conditioned to be that way.
Yeah. And that's just it. There's always one wee pea in the pod that doesn't quite fit and wants to break out on its own. And that's about it. So do we think that as therapists, we are there really to show people that we allow them to make their own decisions, that it's okay to make different choices?
I don't know if I like the sentence of "we allow them to make their own choices."
Yeah.
I know. I mean, this is it. It's an ingrained word, but it's a case of sometimes people are asking permission to make a choice.
But I think in those cases, when I've worked with my clients, it's always been a case of you can give yourself permission.
Yeah.
So it's not about me giving you permission, because what I say doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you need to give yourself permission.
It kind of goes back to that old joke about the sadist and the masochist, doesn't it? The masochist says, hit me, and the sadist said no.
Oh.
It's a long time since I've heard that one.
Well, you see that, you know, some choices that are made can be interesting in many different ways. Tanys, sorry, I jumped in there.
No, I was just, it was confirmation. It's okay. It's okay. You covered it. It's all good.
I'm just going to be disturbed by that thought now. I mean, I'm going to choose not to be disturbed by your thoughts.
Well, I was just going to say,
your thoughts disturb me far too often.
We can't have a TiC without me disturbing your thought pattern somewhere along the line, Angela. It just wouldn't be fun.
I might need some chocolate to recover.
Well, you see, then there's a good thing, because there's a good choice always for grounding is chocolate.
Always.
I invite you to make the choice to have chocolate, Angela.
Unless you're a dog. Don't have chocolate if you're a dog, because that doesn't really work.
I'm not a dog.
Who's talking to you?
Oh, that's fine then. I got a bit worried then.
But do you have a variety of chocolate?
Choose to become worried.
I've got 2 bits of chocolate brownie left.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so in wrapping this up,
that's the decision made for you.
In a big red ribbon of decisions. They are all our own, no matter whether anybody else has their little tuppence worth shoved in there. Ultimately, our decisions are our own choices, and our choices are our own decisions, especially when, as Mr. Robbins would say, we take massive action.
Please don't imitate people like that. That's scary.
You know, I like to be scary occasionally.
It's also the point that we can't blame anyone else for the decisions we made.
No. Or the consequences that we accrue because of the decisions that we make. And sometimes it's the consequences that actually make the decisions worthwhile, be they perceived to be good or bad. Because sometimes there are lessons in there that we can learn as to how not to do things again. So we're going to leave you with some decisions because we're deciding to wrap up now, or I am. And basically, because we have other things to do and other places to go, and we have to decide what we're going to do next. Yeah, you're going to have brownies. No, I want a brownie. Ooh, is that a choice, a decision, or have I been manipulated? I don't know anymore. So anyway, goodbye,
Correct
good night,
question.
good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Have a good day. And as Dave Allen would say, may your God go with you.